few weeks ago, I sat down to do my own Gap audit, the one I built, the one I tell you to do. I made a list of where I was falling short. Spending, the 9:30 p.m. wind down I kept blowing past, the pots in the sink. The list got long fast, the way it always does when you actually look at it. And the whole time I was making that list, I missed something, sitting right there at the top of the page, in the part I had crossed off. The thing I had stopped thinking about because it was no longer a problem. The fitness gap. Closed. 3,000 steps a day to 10,000 plus. Workouts 3 times a week, every week, for months. Weight coming off. Energy holding through the afternoon without a nap, even on days when I could nap. Closed. And I almost wrote a whole episode about everything I'm still doing badly without mentioning it. So today, I'm going to fix that. Because if you're anything like me, the gap that already closed is the one you owe yourself the most attention. Not because you need to celebrate, because you need to understand what you actually did before you forget. This is episode 5 of Make It Inevitable, The Gap That Closed and Why I Almost Missed It. Let me say something uncomfortable about how I'm wired. When something stops being a problem, it disappears. Not from my life, from my attention. I don't walk around feeling proud of my step count. I don't high five myself for showing up to a workout. I don't pat myself on the back at 4 p.m. for not falling asleep on the couch. The fitness stuff just happens now. It's part of the background. The things in the foreground are the things still broken. The financial system I haven't built, the 9:30 p.m. wind down I keep blowing past, the pots that show up in the sink, whether or not we agreed about them. Those have my attention because they're loud. They're unresolved. They cost me something every week. The fitness gap closed quietly, so I forgot to notice that it was even ever open. And here's the trap. When I forget that something used to be hard, I lose the data. I lose the recipe. I cannot reapply it to the next gap because I never bothered to write down what worked. So this episode is me writing it down, out loud, on purpose. If you've closed a gap somewhere in your life right now, this episode is for you too. Pause for a second and think about it. The thing that used to be a struggle and isn't anymore. The thing you stopped complaining about. The thing your past self would not believe you actually did. Got one? Good. Hold it. We're going to reverse engineer mine, and I want you to do the same with yours by the end. Before I tell you what closed it, I owe you the honest picture of what it was. I was averaging 3,000 steps a day. For context, this is what you get if you walk from your bed to your desk to the kitchen back to your desk, the desk to the couch, and then the couch to the bed. That was the entire physical footprint of my day. For years, I wasn't working out. I would start a program, push hard for 2 weeks, miss a day, and then the whole thing would fall apart by Friday. I tried that workout DVD Insanity, Turbo Jam, went to the gym down the street, walked with friends, walked with a podcast, walked with audiobooks. I bought a standing desk and rarely raised it. Every program worked for a couple weeks, but none of them stuck. I was tired in a specific way, not sleepy tired, heavy tired. The kind where you sit down at 3 p.m. and time skips forward to 4:30. The kind where you tell yourself you're going to go for a walk after dinner, and then you just don't. I had told myself, for probably 4 years straight, that I just needed more discipline, that I needed to want it more, that if I could just find the right program, I would stick with it. None of that turned out to be true. Here's where I have to be careful, because the temptation is to tell you a nice, clean story. The clean story would be, I read The Miracle Morning and changed my life. It is not the clean story. It is messier than that. But there's a real pattern in it, and the pattern is what I want you to take. So 3 things changed. None of them were the goal. None of them were motivation. 1, The steps stopped being a workout and started getting added to the things I was already doing. For years, I tried to add walks to my day on purpose, as an exercise, as a thing I had to remember to do. It never stuck because there was always one more thing on a list of things I was already failing at. What actually changed was twofold. First, the dogs. They had to go out in the morning, and they go out in the evening. That is not optional. They don't care if I'm tired. They don't care that I'm behind on a bunch of emails. They need to go outside, and so I go outside with them. 2 walks a day, every day, on autopilot. Second, my meals. I started getting steps in after each meal, sometimes outside, sometimes just walking around the house. Lots of times just walking circles around the island. Nothing structured, just I ate, now I move. That happens 3 times a day, almost without thinking, because it's hooked to something I'm already going to do, which is eat. 3,000 steps a day became 5, then became 7, then became 10,000. I never set a step goal. I just walked the dogs and walked after meals. The dog don't care about my motivation. The meal already happened. The reps showed up because I pinned them to the things that were already going to happen. That is the trick I missed for years. Pinning the habit to something that was already non-negotiable. Not a goal I had to defend, a responsibility or routine that was already in place. 2. I stopped scheduling to work out for a version of me that didn't exist. This is the one that took me the longest to admit. For years, I tried to schedule my workouts between 6 and 8 a.m. The pitch I sold myself was that I could become a morning person and get fitter at the same time. 2 birds, one alarm clock. I ended up doing neither. I would snooze, skip the workout, and feel like a failure before 9 a.m. That is a great way to start a workday. I eventually moved my workouts to noon, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. By noon, I'm already awake. That's one less decision in the way. Lunch is also an acceptable time to be away from my computer. I can come back at my desk at 1, eat at my desk, and nobody is wondering where I went. That one decision, moving the workout to noon, was probably the most important thing I did, because the workout I can actually do beats the workout I keep failing to do every single time. 3. I stopped expecting it to be easy and stopped expecting it to be heroic. Here's the part I want to be careful about, because the wellness internet wants you to believe consistency is something you build by feeling great about yourself. The first time I worked out, I was wrecked. The weights felt heavy, 30 minutes felt long, and I went to bed sore and grumpy. The second time, a little bit smidge easier. The fifth time was noticeably easier. By the second month, I was going up in weight. By the fourth month, I had a number I was proud of. And then there were days, and there still are days, where I show up and the weights I lifted last week feel impossible. On those days, the win is not the same number. The win is showing up and lifting what I can lift today, even if it's less than what I could lift, say, in February. I keep improving on average, not necessarily every session. That is the real loop, not easy, then easy, then easy. It goes hard, then less hard, then a setback, then improvement, and again. The version of me who works out today is not the version who never has a bad day. It's the version who shows up on the bad days and accepts a smaller win. Here's the part that took me longer to figure out. And this is the part I think actually matters for you. When the fitness gap started to close, I didn't notice it for months. I noticed I was less tired, but I attributed it to better sleep. I noticed I wasn't crashing at 3 p.m., but I attributed it to coffee. I noticed my clothes fit differently, and I told myself I'd probably been overdue for some new pieces anyway. I was sitting on a real win and assigning credit to everything except the system I had quietly built. This matters because when you don't give credit to the actual cause, you can't copy it forward. I was about to walk into the next gap, the financial one, and
Mm.
try and close it the way I had tried to close the fitness gap one for years. With more discipline, with a better program, with wanting it more. That wouldn't have worked. None of those things were the fixes that fixed my fitness. What fixed fitness was pinning the habit to things that were already going to happen, picking the time I could actually keep, and accepting that the bad days still count if I show up. If I don't name that, I don't have it as a tool when I sit down to design the next system. That is what happens to most people with most of their wins. The progress is invisible to them because they weren't watching for it. And then the next time they hit a wall, they don't have a recipe to pull from. They have a vague sense that something worked once, and they cannot remember what. So this is me, naming it so I can use it again. I'm not going to give you a worksheet today. I just want you to sit with 3 questions this week. You can answer them in your head on a walk. You can write them down in the margin of whatever you're reading. You don't need a new system to do this. Pick one thing in your life that used to be hard, but isn't anymore. It doesn't have to be fitness. It can be the way you handle Sunday nights, the way you respond to your boss, the way you talk to yourself in the mirror, the way you handle a specific person who used to stress you out. It can be anything. Then ask yourself 3 things. 1. What did you stop trying to be? Most closed gaps involve abandoning a version of yourself that was never going to work. For me, I had to stop trying to become a morning person before the workout could stick. What did you let go of? 2. What did you pin the habit to that was already going to happen? Not a goal you had to defend, something that was already part of your day. A pet, a meeting, a meal, a school pickup. What did you attach the new behavior to so you stopped having to remember it? 3. What did you accept about the bad days? This is the one most people skip. The closed gap is not the one where you never have a bad day. It's the one where the bad days no longer take you out. What did you decide to count as a win on a hard day? So, 3 questions. You can do it on your next walk. The point is not the answer. The point is having the recipe in your hands so you can use it again. I want to leave you with one thing. The reason I almost missed this win was not that I'm ungrateful or that I'm a pessimist or that I'm bad at noticing things. The reason I almost missed it is that the system worked exactly the way it was supposed to, quietly, without drama, without celebration. That is what real change looks like. It doesn't feel like a finish line. It feels like the problem just stopped being a problem and you moved on. If you're in the middle of trying to close a gap right now, I want you to remember this. The signal that it is working is not going to be a feeling of triumph. The signal is going to be the thing that used to bother you not bothering you anymore. You might miss it the first time. That's okay. Look for it. And then say it out loud. Because closed gaps are how you build the system that closes the next one. That is episode 5 of Make It Inevitable, The Gap That Closed and Why I Almost Missed It. If you want the Gap Audit, link is in the show notes and in my bio. It's free. It will make you feel uncomfortable. That is the point. I will see you next week.